Welcome. Today we will be analyzing our top 10 art history movements. We will be basing our criteria on these 5 categories: its legacy, its individual artist, its size and scope, and its critical analysis, as well as one unique trait. So starting off at number 10, we have realism. Realism began in France in the 1850s. It sought to portray the lives of ordinary people and their everyday lives completely and accurately. Realist artists depicted all classes of people across all manners of life, particularly those brought about by the changes from the Industrial Revolution. Uniquely, it avoided the intense emotion and idealism of preceding artistic movements and became influential throughout all of Europe and the Americas and remained dominant for the rest of the century. It lost its traction, however, with the advent of Impressionism, which degraded the value in precision brushwork. Famous artists include the likes of Courbet and Daumier. Realism finds itself on our number 10 spot because it heightened the value of unadulterated portrayal of various subjects, but failed to leave a distinct legacy beyond the early 20th century. Number 9. Postmodernism. Postmodernism gained traction around the mid-20th century and is defined by a rejection of grand narratives and ideologies. Instead, it prioritizes moral relativism, subjectivity, self-referentiality, and irreverence. Postmodernism includes a broad array of artists that continue to flourish to this day. It finds itself at our number 9 spot on our list because of its relatively short existence. Only time will tell the true extent of its legacy. Number 8. Surrealism. In a time of rapid industrialization and dominant realism, people once again sought the intricacies of the imagination. Where earlier movements sought the imagination through idealized scenes, surrealists believed that the power of the imagination could be found in everyday life and especially in the unconscious. The movement was spurred by the work of the psychologist Sigmund Freud, and popular artists include Frida Kahlo and Salvador Dali. Surrealism created a blend between everyday life and the imagination and tied it into contemporary psychology. For this reason, Surrealism finds itself at number 8 on our list. Number 7. Abstract Expressionism. This is the movement that houses the art pieces that most people think of when they hear modern art. Abstract Expressionism included such artists as Jackson Pollock, Franz Kline, and Mark Rothko, all of whom have produced works emblematic of the movement in some fashion. These artists radicalized the way art was produced and made to be, throwing out any and all artistic conventions in favor of art that purely focused on the visual psyche of the artist, in order to gain access to some higher expression. However, more traditional critics have lambasted the movement as nothing more than throwing paint on a canvas. Number 6. Baroque. If it's not Baroque, don't fix it. This period in art history is one of rich iconography, often depicting biblical events and figures in a beautiful splendor with the precision and humanistic figures of the Renaissance. When it comes to iconic artistic figures, the Baroque movement is not in short supply, housing such figures as Caravaggio, Bernini, and Poussin. This movement encompassed all of Europe and endured for as long as a century. The magnificence of a work such as Il Gesù, which blended art and architecture, will never be forgotten. Number 5. Impressionism. The work of several independent artists, this movement is widely renowned for its beautiful artwork and depictions of fleeting feelings. The legacy of Impressionism is rich and important, for it is widely regarded as the start of modernity in art. The artists of the Impressionist movement are incredibly diverse, including famed figures such as Monet and Degas. However, this movement is often overshadowed by its younger counterpart, Post-Impressionism, lowering its rank among its peers. Number 4. Post-Impressionism. This movement may be the one and only instance in which a reaction movement eclipsed its predecessor, in this case, Impressionism. The Post-Impressionists included the likes of Georges Seurat and Paul Cézanne, but both of them pale in comparison to the tragic Vincent van Gogh. His Starry Night remains one of the most iconic works of art of all time. His art embodied the post-impressionist movement, making it no wonder that his art has found such a wide and captivated audience. The only aspect of this movement that diminishes its rank is its smaller scale in both number of artists and reach across the world. Number 3. Cubism. Cubism is arguably the most unique artistic movements of all our history. In a time of rapid modernization and industrialism in society, much like Romanticism, Cubism sought to emphasize the intensity of raw human emotion and expressions. Cubism stripped its imagery of conventional details and left only the most essential images in the form of geometric shapes and lines. Cubism finds itself so high on our list for a few reasons. It essentially laid the foundation for all abstract art following it. Its unique art style completely revolutionized all previous impressions of the standards of painting, and it encompassed one of the most famous artists of all time, Picasso. Number 2, Romanticism. Romanticism is essential in order to understand the progression of artistic styles throughout history. A reaction against the cold reason and logic of the Enlightenment, this movement emphasized human emotion and imagination in its interpretation of the world. Its legacy is seen in movements following it, such as Impressionism and Expressionism, both of which emphasize emotion and feeling in art. Its reach is uniquely pervasive, spreading from France and Britain to the furthest reaches of Europe and even to the Americas. The art of the Romantics is stunning and rich in quality, meaning, and history. Iconic artists are the one thing that this artistic movement lacks, however. Finally, at number 1, we have the Renaissance. This is the art history movement that started it all. In terms of scope, legacy, analysis, and artists, there are none that can rival the Renaissance. Its legacy is undisputed. It directly influenced pretty much every artistic movement in some way, shape, or form from that point going forward. This movement contained figures such as Michelangelo, Raphael, and Da Vinci, all of whom individually could rival any other iconic artists. In scope, this movement was so vast that it made up multiple smaller movements that vary according to region and time, and each work of the Renaissance is an artistic achievement of the highest order all on its own. The Renaissance is definitely the most iconic movement of all time. There you have it. Those are our top 10 art history movements. Thank you for watching.